All right, let's talk about the GFX 100 Mark II. And this is not like a complete review of what all this camera can do. It's a fantastic camera. We're going to talk about the autofocus. Now, I have shot with the GFX 100, the Mark I. Fuji gave it to me while I was in India for a few days. It was good. It had face detect, PHASE, face detect, right? But the tracking and all that was not great. And then I owned the 50R. That was pretty bad in terms of focusing, moving objects, moving people, even for weddings. I had to wait for moments where somebody was not really moving very fast. But now, here we have the GFX 100 Mark II, and this is mine, and 8 FPS, which is pretty good for a medium format. It's not going to shoot, Formula One cars and stuff, but this is pretty good for moving, for people, right? For dancers, for weddings, for even probably a little bit of sports. Although I would still go to a Sony or a Canon or Nikon for sports, but I wanted to test this. I wanted to really push this. So I got in touch with a contemporary dancer, Rashi, and she kindly agreed to do some dance steps, jumps, twirls, and I wanted to test it. Now I'm coming from the Sony a7R5. I sold that whole setup for this. So this had better perform, right? And let's see what happened. So the setup was basically, I started with the 55 1.7 lens, and then I moved to the 110 f2. I was in continuous focus. I used the Profoto B10X Plus to kind of fill or even light the model sometimes, and had the Profoto Connect on top of this, the Fuji Profoto Connect, the one compatible with Fuji, and I was shooting wide open. I was shooting at 1.7 and at f2 with the respective lenses. So that's what the setup was, and the drive was on 8 FPS, the highest possible, right? Because I wanted those perfect moments where the model was at the peak of the action, up from the ground, and probably water splashing and stuff like that. So here are the pictures. What do you think? Okay, now let me talk about my observations. Here's what happened. So if the model was a little far away, the eye focus was not picking up the eye every time. It was picking up sometimes it would focus on some vague part of the body or on the background, and you had to manually kind of touch the screen. And the good thing is, while looking through the viewfinder, you can move your finger and get the focus point to the eye, and once it caught the eye, it really stayed there. So 8 FPS, it stuck on. But if it did not catch the eye the first time around, it struggled. It was just focusing anywhere and everywhere. So there are a few pictures where I did not get the face perfectly in focus, but just because the distance was quite good, and it still appears decently sharp if you view the full image, but if you really blow it up, you can see that the eye is not completely in focus. But most of the time it really caught up, and once it focused on the eye, it did not let go. The problem is when it loses the eye again. So if the model is facing you and she's kind of jumping around, that's fine. But let's say she turned and then she turned back, it sometimes again started struggling, which the a7R5 did not. I tried it with another dancer, the a7R5, the moment the dancer would turn, it would catch the eye. So yeah, so it's not perfect, but I think it did a brilliant job for a medium format, first gen, with all kinds of frills in terms of autofocus. So I think it was pretty good. Now there are two other disadvantages of using the Fuji with strobes. The sync speed is 125. So the moment I go above 125, HSS has to kick in, which means, the power of the light goes down, and the speed tops off at 1/4000. Now I would love a 1/8000 to freeze action, but 1/4000 is not too bad. So I shot a lot of these at 1/4000 wide open, and I think it did a pretty decent job. I wouldn't be afraid to take this as my primary camera for a commercial shoot where there is movement. Like I said, not a sporting event, not probably Formula One, but yes, I think it does a good job at pinpointing focus on the eye, and if it does not, and if you move it manually from there on, it sticks, and it sticks well, and it does well. And the 8 fps, I love it. I think 8 fps is really good for scenarios like this, and I think this camera did a fabulous job of that. So yeah, I'm going to be using this as my primary camera for pretty much all my commercial shoots, studio, out of studio. So do consider subscribing to the channel, following this, and if you have any questions, comments, if you want me to do more tests with this for making a buying decision, let me know. I'll attempt to do some more experiments with the GFX 100 Mark II. Thank you.